Hello, I'm Ari Richter. Welcome back. The formal and conceptual sensibilities that were established during the Italian Renaissance served as the basis for most European art made in the preceding 5 centuries. Much of the important work from this period revolved around highly crafted depictions of moralizing tales from the Christian Bible or Greek and Roman mythology. The birth of modernity in the mid-19th century showed the first distinct break from the Renaissance tradition. Rather than referencing a specific style or movement, the term modernism refers to the vast scope of artistic styles that were explored in the Western fine arts lineage from roughly the mid-19th century through the mid-20th century. Specific movements such as Impressionism, Cubism, and Abstract Expressionism were all part of the modernist trajectory. This lecture will begin the art historical portion of the semester. Since the topic of art history is so broad, we will concentrate exclusively on the history of modernism in the European and American arts. There were 3 major revolutions at play which served as a breeding ground for the ideas of modernism. The first was the Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain in the 1760s. The Industrial Revolution was responsible for many major technological developments, including industrial steel manufacturing and the invention of the locomotive. These developments greatly increased the speed at which our societies progressed. Goods and ideas could now travel across a continent at speeds which were never thought possible. The American Revolution of 1776 and the French Revolution of 1789 were both results of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, or Age of Reason, was a philosophical movement characterized by a belief in the importance of liberty, progress, and self-determination. Democracy was valued over monarchy, and separation was sought between church and state. A more rational and scientific approach was taken toward religion as well as political, social, and economic issues. Since Poussin's academies in the 17th century, Paris had been the center of the art world, and it would remain so through the first half of the modern era. We will begin by discussing the state of the European art world in pre-revolutionary France. Until the late 18th century, France was governed by a royal court and a ruling class of nobles. Rococo was the preferred artistic style of the noble class. The arts of Rococo were made exclusively for these aristocrats, and they placed great value on ornamentation, beauty, and opulence. This piece, entitled The Swing by the painter Jean-Honoré Fragonard, is a clear example of Rococo work. Its subject is a flirtatious encounter in a private garden between young French nobles. This voyeuristic painting would have been made to hang in the private estate of the patron. The reign of the nobles came to an abrupt end during the French Revolution. There had been an extreme disparity between the economic levels of the noble and peasant classes. Where the nobles could afford to spend excessive amounts of money on luxuries and leisure, the peasants were generally living hand-to-mouth. Inspired by the American Revolution a decade earlier, the peasant class of France rose up to overthrow the king. Making use of the recently invented guillotine, the revolutionaries began their so-called Reign of Terror, in which they beheaded most of the noble class who were not able to flee the country. Still pre-modern, Neoclassicism was the official artistic style of the French Revolutionary Guard. As the social structure and values of the French changed, so did their artistic tastes. Art concerning the hedonistic fantasies of the rich fell from favor. The Revolution was a populist movement which valued art with clarity of content and moralizing subject matter. The name Neoclassicism, which literally means New Classicism, refers to the influence from the classical periods in Greece and Rome. Ancient Greece represented the type of republican government that the revolutionaries wanted to create for the new France. The architecture of this estate represents the neoclassical ideals for symmetry and form. The pristine marble columns clearly reference sensibilities from Greek and Roman antiquity. This home, called Monticello, was designed and occupied by Thomas Jefferson. Being kindred spirits of sorts, France and the United States have shared many cultural ideals since the times of their revolutions. The neoclassical artists often made work that referenced historical moments from antiquity. Jacques-Louis David was a neoclassical painter who was very involved in the revolution from its inception. This piece, entitled Oath of the Horatii, illustrates a story from Roman history. In this story, a father calls on his sons to take up swords to fight for the safety of Rome. Although they may die, the security of Rome was understood to be more important than their individual lives. Even though the French revolutionaries did not dress or fight like the ancient Romans, David wanted to draw a parallel from his countrymen. Like the Uncle Sam Wants You poster from the US military, paintings like the Oath of the Horatii served as political propaganda. The subject matter was considered important, and it was made with the intention of securing political allegiance. This painting, also by Jacques-Louis David, depicts a grand ceremony in which Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of France. Napoleon, who had led the French people through their populist revolution, had himself succumbed to the allure of imperial power. Today, somebody who takes authority to compensate for their shortcomings is said to have a Napoleon complex. Similarly, David had helped to overturn the old guard of the pre-revolutionary academies just to repopulate them with artists eager to celebrate the new kings of their land. A change in the structure was inevitable, and it was coming in the form of the modernist revolution.